Welcome to the 2717 podcast. I'm Javier, an authentic wedding filmmaker.
And I'm Ashley, a passionate wedding photographer.
We're here to bring Proverbs 27:17 to the wedding industry. As iron sharpens iron,
so one person sharpens another. In this fun series, we're all about sharing experiences and building a community.
Expect heartfelt stories, creative inspiration, and some amazing behind-the-scene moments.
Plus, insights from some truly inspiring guests.
Tune in to connect with us, spark your creativity,
and be a part of a supportive community.
You're listening to the 2717 podcast.
Planning your wedding isn't just about choosing a venue, it's about finding the perfect backdrop for one of the most meaningful moments of your life. That's where Juliana Estate comes in. Nestled in the heart of Lakeland, this elegant estate gives you that classic scenic charm, like a movie set, but it's all yours. Think lush greenery, romantic gardens, and plenty of room for unforgettable moments with the people you love the most. It's a place where every detail feels personal because it's not just a venue. It's where your story begins. See how Juliana Estate can make your wedding day truly yours at julianaestate.com. Thanks for sponsoring today's podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 2717 podcast. Today, we are diving into and breaking down a huge topic in the wedding industry and something that's inevitably going to grow your business, grow your experience, and get you into the weddings that you want to shoot. So we are diving into how to be an amazing, great second shooter.
So if you've been struggling, this is the podcast to watch to become an excellent second shooter and be of value to those lead videographers out there and photographers. So what's point number one, Ash?
Point number one is that you are there to help your main photographer and not steal the spotlight from them. So this is huge in the industry. The main photographer is hiring you to elevate their business and have you step out. So what I want you to do is I want you to take you and your business and your brain out of the equation. Yes, what you learn is going to be so valuable, but at the end of the day, it's not about you and your business. It's about elevating your main photographer.
But if you play your cards right, you could even earn more business by being a great second shooter. Look, story time right now. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
So this last 2 weeks ago, we had a wedding together, and during couples portraits, my SD card, my secondary one, was like running out of space. I was panicking. I was freaking out. And if it wasn't for the Hollyland headsets, not sponsored, wish we were, those headsets came in handy because you're probably like 800 feet away from me. You're doing cocktail. I'm on the golf course. I'm doing portraits with the bride and groom during this amazing, beautiful sunset to die for. Mm-hmm. And I buzzed you. I'm like, hey, Ash, can you go get me some SD cards?
And when I tell y'all, I booked it. I booked it back to the reception space. I booked it across the golf course to get him these SD cards because that is a stressful situation. If I was in that situation, I would be panicking about missing a moment. So, yeah.
When I got them cards back, the groom was like, wow, you really did book it.
He goes, you sprinted that thing. And I went, uh-huh. And I said, your bride looks so beautiful. I'm going to go. I'm going to go back to cocktail hour.
And I was so thankful that she got me the SD cards. One, super fast. Like, that's value. Made herself look good and me look good. I'm like, that's perfect. I know what kind of person I'm bringing on to the wedding day that's willing to book it across like an 800 feet sprint to get me these SD cards. And that's a value, right? Mm-hmm. Like, being there to serve that other person and knowing that, like, hey, my job is to be efficient, be quick, and make that other person's day easy. In order to do that, it's like this. You don't have to necessarily be reserved or be hitting away from the group of vendors that you're working together.
Not at all.
It's more about complimenting that main lead videographer in ways that people can tell that you're serving them. And some of the ways look just the way that Ash did for me by getting those SD cards at a quick moment, or helping me with the bride when she's getting in her dress and certain things I can't do with the mics. You know, like adjusting those little things. It's so important and adds so much value for me in my wedding when you're helping me out, where that's the key part. You're being efficient, you're providing value. And the other thing I have to say that's really huge is just being proactive too. If you're knowing that, like, hey, we're going to move to another location, can I go ahead and get the book bags, the tripods, all the stuff that we got to get to move to? That way maybe the lead shooter can just focus on just with a couple, capturing as many candid moments as possible. Like the role of a second is there to adapt and to be ready and be quick with it, whether it be for photo, for video, or even content creation. Like whatever that may look like, is being there to serve your lead.
Yeah. And I hate the saying too of like, oh, I'm just hiring a second to be there, or I'm just hiring a second to talk to me, or I'm just hiring a second to, be my backup or whatever. Like that is not what seconds are intended for. Seconds are intended to be the extra hands that you don't have. If I could grow 3 more hands, like arms, I would, to be able to like hold my camera, hold a film camera, do the details, hold the veil, zip the dress, bow the buttons, all of the things, be that extra set of hands for everybody there. I would, but I can't. So, I mean, why not as a main, like use who you have, especially if like they're being hired on, like use them, you know what I mean? And like as the second shooter, like be efficient and adapt to what the photographer needs, but maybe not even through communication, but like just like on your own intuition of like, hey, the bride's dress, like I'm maybe main shooters fixing camera gear, making sure everything looks good for settings, portraits are about to happen and the bride's dress needs to be floofed. Like go ahead and just do a little floof. It's still like little things like that like make your main photographer or videographer's business look good, shows that you're part of their team and you're there to help them succeed, and just really being of value to your main shooter.
Absolutely. And be a helping hand as much as you can, but don't forget you're still there to serve your lead shooter. And that way you can help others too as well, but making sure that you're always there for that lead shooter when they're needed and when they need you for anything that's going on. And honestly, Ash, before we start like any second shooting, it's the number one thing that is so important that can lead to a very successful second shooting experience or hiring a second shooter?
Tell me.
Communication.
Period.
Communication is the key.
Communicate with your team. You are on a team. You're on the same team. Go ahead.
To set expectations.
Go ahead. You go.
Setting the expectations of what that professionalism looks like for the company that you're going to serve. If you don't communicate, if for example, as a lead shooter, it's important for you to communicate and maybe even over communicate the things that are important for your business for your second shooter. And seconds, if the lead shooter is hiring you but isn't giving you any direction, ask them questions. So at the end of the day, if they didn't communicate with you, you've done your part to ask the necessary questions to be able to ask, like, how can I serve you best? You may ask yourself, what kind of questions should I ask them? Like, well, is there a dress code? How
so
if
important.
I get approached?
There probably is.
Yeah,
like it's a dress
probably
code.
A dress code. Like, what kind of wedding are we? Is it a black tie event, or is it an elopement out in the mountains or something?
Javi made me get a full suit for one wedding, full blazer set, full pants, trouser set. There's a moment. You got to do what you got to do, though.
It depends on the events. Now she's prepared for any black tie events or any certain events where it's important to have that attire. Another one would be is, what is the standard practice when it comes to if a guest approaches me and they ask me for a business card or for my business or whatever, what should I do? That's the opportunity where you can set the standards. Like, hey, do you prefer to send them to the website, your website, or is it a business card or your Instagram? How would you like for that information to be captured? That way they can know that's your work, not my own work, and you're there to be part of that team, and you're not there to represent Ashley J Photography when you're shooting for Sundial Creatives LLC.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing.
Yeah. Another one would be too is like, what lens do you want me to shoot on? Like if you're bringing your own gear, that's a huge thing. Whenever I second shoot for any of my friends or any second shooters that I have, like I always ask for their gear list, and then I try to see what lenses they have that I maybe don't have. Or I ask, if I'm second shooting for somebody, I'll be like, hey, what are you shooting on? This is what I have. Maybe I can get a different thing than you. Like if one of my second shooters has an 85 millimeter and I don't have that, and I normally shoot on my 24-70 and my 35, like, yeah, let's try out an 85. Like give me some 85 for maybe ceremony or reception. And, so then we have a bunch of different angles as well. And also make sure that you have backup gear as well, because you don't want to be in a pickle and if your main photographer is in a pickle, then maybe you can help them out as well, because we are all human after all.
Yeah, very true. When Ash second shoots for me, she doesn't have to bring gear though.
Thank God.
I bring 4 cameras, 5 technically with a drone.
Yeah.
All the fun
You
stuff.
you got cool video stuff. All my stuff's better for photo anyway.
True. I got a photo camera though. Wait, I do bring 5 cameras to a wedding day. I have 1 backup. Speaking of backups, I got 1 backup.
You should. Okay, this is side tip. You should always have backup of everything.
I got 5 cameras.
You should have backups of everything.
Meaning, also bring your SD cards when you're going out to shoot, because you never know if something happens or corrupts on a file for your lead shooter, that you can be a resource. I remember when I showed up to a wedding and for my lead shooter, and he forgot 2 of his memory cards.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means he wasn't able to like double back the files as we're recording or photographing, whatever. And so unfortunately, I didn't bring mine. Like, I wasn't a helping hand there. Like, that's where I'm like, you know what? It's going to be standard practice. I'm going to bring my set of memory cards no matter what. And so I'll just leave them on my camera. I'll give it to the lead shooter, and then we'll trade at the end of the night. That way, if anything were to happen, at least I have mine and I can send them or give them my SD cards and they can mail it back at a later date. Why not? But at least I would have been there for that emergency case. And I regret not having those memory cards there to be a hand, helping hand at that moment.
Yeah. And again, I mean, that comes with the whole point of this anyway. It's like, now you have that experience of like that story, it clicks in your brain, and now you never forget SD cards. Like, that's the whole point, is like, you're going to second shoot to then grow in your experiences and then evolve from there. So that's huge.
If there's one thing that as a second shooter you want to take with you at the end of the day, or ask for some feedback. Ask, hey, how did I do on the wedding day in terms of, did I make your life easier or was it tougher? Or like, hey, once you've had some time to review the shots, did I get any good quality shots that are good for you? Or like, hey, send me the film. I'll love to see what I did. That lets the lead shooter know that like, hey, they care about what they just did and perform, and if they can be better. And I have to say one thing about Ash. She hates feedback.
What? Total liar.
Please forgive me. No, she's actually the best. She will send me a text as soon as it ends and say like, hey, you like my shots?
How my shots look?
And I'm like, well, it's going to be a minute because it'll be a week until I look at the footage. I do back up the footage and I do, store everything properly. So don't go off in the comments going crazy.
Yeah, no, it's so important to hold that vulnerability with your main photographer, especially, or videographer, especially if you are trying to grow and learn in your experience, like asking them, how did you do? And then just listening to them and actually taking everything that they say. And maybe it's not exactly what you want to hear, or it's not going to like lift your spirits, but don't let it discourage you, because at the end of the day, the whole point is to grow, and the whole point is to, make yourself a better creative, a better person on a wedding day, grow your experience. So, take everything and apply it, or take it with a grain of salt too. Like, you know what I mean? So,
for example, let's say like you're more of this type of filmmaker that loves to create films that are much more hype and energetic, but the person that you're second shooting for is much more focused maybe on details and really focusing on the fine art aspect of the day. And so their approach is very differently, but you're able to adapt to it. I think it's super key at that point to understand it's like, all right, when I'm serving them, this is how they like it.
right.
And I can compartmentalize what I would naturally gravitate towards and learn how to improve in this skill set and get better at it, because you never know when you're going to get the opportunity to possibly shoot a wedding like that.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't even resonate with your own traditional type of weddings, but you're willing to take the opportunity because now you've been trained for it, that you feel comfortable and have enough experience that you can take on this wedding. So
yeah, it'll show you what you like and what you don't like anyway too. You know what I mean? Especially just starting out. Like, if you really think that you love, like you said, those like high-end detail-oriented weddings, and then you go shoot one and it's really not your cup of tea, and you love the more intimate, emotion-filled like type of moments too, or weddings, like, you know what I mean, then you're going to shift your focus into that aspect of things more. But I like what you said too about like but you never know when you may help someone that does need you to shoot in this certain way. And now you have that experience to hold under your belt too.
Yeah. Hey, you can get a crazy lead out there that you never know, that like, hey, we got a $20,000 budget. We'd love to have this filmmaker out here or photographer out here shoot this. And the couple really resonates with you too, but maybe their theme is a little bit different from what you shoot. Like, that's an opportunity that, like, hey,
Sure.
even if it wasn't in your portfolio, you have the experience and the confidence to go out and fulfill it.
Yeah, that's huge. Another really great tip for second shooters is to always be flexible. Like I'm kind of reiterating, like wedding days are fast paced and things happen where the timeline doesn't always go as the main photographer or videographer plan it to be. And that is your job to be as flexible as possible. Like the timeline doesn't go smooth. Something's going on with the bride, something's going on in the back end stuff. And that's where all of us as creatives have to be flexible. So if you're not able to mold to how the main photographer needs you to mold in that very instance, it can be really harmful, be really scary. Don't do that.
To be willing to be flexible,
Be flexible.
adapt as much as possible. And I've like, I remember when I first started, I never second shot, like, for anybody. It wasn't until like year 3 where I said, you know what? I'm going to remove this perspective of like, this is my way or the highway, and let me go out and start second shooting. And I'm telling you, it opened up my mind so much more, seeing how other people like have their processes and systems.
So true.
And allow me to know how I want to run the wedding day. But if I wasn't willing to be flexible to go out and help and second shoot and add value to this person, I wouldn't know what's right for me. But because I was exposed, and it's allowed me to expand in other areas and know exactly what kind of kit I want in terms of video,
Yeah.
and the tools that I need for wedding days and how I want to approach, and things that I've gotten so many things from other videographers that I've second shot for, seeing what their talents are. So for example, if one of them is super communicative and they're very kind and very sweet, and they take the time not just to like just be about in the moment of the shot, but willing to speak with everyone, make everyone else feel comfortable. Like, oh, that's a nice tool right there. Now you're getting everybody familiarized with who you are. You have a camera with you, but you're not just this person behind the camera, not speaking to anybody. You introduce yourself, and then you show who you are, and you can talk for a little bit, and then you can get into the workflow of the day and filming and preparing everything. Sometimes if you just get right in there with a camera, like everybody's like tensed up.
Yeah.
You didn't make
True.
people feel at ease and calm. And those are just the little things I picked up from the years of second shooting for someone else, and just seeing like, oh, wow, I love that approach.
Yeah.
And I know like other seconds that shot with me and have taken some of my portion for their wedding days when I got to help them. I'm like, oh, that's super cool. I love that you were able to pass that on, whether if it's a little word like just saying brother to the groom rather than his name. You know, it relaxes and eases off the tension of the day. And you can become one of the guys when you're with the groomsmen, and making them part of a team where now it's easier to work with.
Yeah.
You know, so those are just the little tips and tricks that I learned, and why being flexible is important, because if not, you'll never open up the opportunity to learn and grow.
Absolutely, for sure. And when I first started my business, which wasn't that long ago, so I can relate to all of you new business owners, and being exposed to this industry in a way where like I did start second shooting more so than just like going out and shooting weddings. I started out second shooting because I thought that the wedding industry was a market I wanted to get into. So I can relate to the stress and the nerves of maybe going into a wedding day for the first time and being stuck and being like, I don't know what to do or how the flow goes, especially when, you know, you're not married yet or you haven't experienced a wedding day like that. From personal experience, like none of my friends have gotten married. I'm the first of my friends to get married, and we're getting married in November. And so when I first started my business a couple years ago and wanted to start shooting, I had no idea what all went into a wedding day, how the timeline's supposed to look, what's the most efficient way to do a timeline. So I 1,000,000% get the nerves and get the stress. But if you take these tips and apply them and just really sit on them and think on them, I promise you, you will grow. And now I second shoot just to serve. like my friends and stuff like that, because I know it'll be served back to me. So it's just like at this point now it's a creative outlet. Like I'm like, I love going in second shooting because all the pressure is off of me, of like the main photographer wise, and I'm just there to be an extra set of hands, run and do everything and get some really creative shots in the process. So
You heard the pressure came off when she shoots for the main photographer, not for a video.
no, for video I'm #really scared.
What? Don't worry, it'll get better as time goes on.
Yeah, for sure.
I love when I
for
get to
photography, I love second shooting.
I love when I get to second shoot for video because I don't have to think about the edit. All I just got to think about is like, all right, how can I make their life easier? Whether it's plugging audio, setting up lighting, getting shots, getting enough shots. And one of the key things is to ask questions of what those final deliverables are going to look like for video. I'm like, all right, like how long is your video? And what kind of film are you going to create? Is it a little bit more cinematic, or are you wanting a little bit more candid, raw emotions? Are you miking up the bride and groom throughout the day? Are you taking off mics? Like, what does your process look like? Because when you invite me into your process, then I can adapt effectively to how the lead wants everything done.
Absolutely.
And so ask those questions. Like that's the big thing. So like literally tomorrow, I'm heading down this weekend to go a second shoot in Miami for this videographer. I'm so excited about it. And like tomorrow we have the call. Like I'm gonna ask him, hey man, like I'll let him speak to me exactly what he's looking for. If there's anything that I'm missing to be prepared, I'm gonna be like, hey, what are the X, Y, and Z that you would like for me to do to make sure like you get exactly what you need out of me and I add value to your service.
Yeah, so good.
Well, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast,
here's what you should do.
You need to follow us on YouTube.
Period.
Spotify.
Period.
Apple Podcasts.
Period.
And anywhere you can find the 2717 podcast, including TikTok now that's back on.
Yes.
So, Ash, do the rest.
Yeah, it was a good try. You can find us on all platforms where you find your podcasts. And then at 27, the number 17 spelled out podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Javi, where can they find you and your business?
On Instagram at sundial.creatives, as well on TikTok, and also at sundialcreatives.com.
And you can find me at AshleyJadePhotographyLLC.com and on Instagram through the same thing and on TikTok through the same thing. Go TikTok. And you can find us at the 27. Wait, I already said that. Oh gosh. Anyway, well, it's been fun. It's been crazy. We hope you have a good week and we will see you guys next time. Bye.